Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. And today we are talking about Jeanne DuVal. And I have no idea who this person is. So as usual, Claudine is going to give us a history lesson, but with a lot more spice and fun. Maybe some courtesans, maybe some like weird family stuff going on. There's always something interesting with Claudine's story. So I'll let Claudine take it from here.
We do kind of have a fascination with the courtesans. And I have another one coming up in future episode, another courtesan. But this one does have something a little spicy to it. But this is the story of Jeanne DuVal, and she is best known for being the lover, mistress of Charles Baudelaire, the poet.
Ooh, see, spice already. I like it.
Yeah, and Charles Baudelaire is a character. We'll go into him a little bit more with this one. But we always joke on our live walks through Paris every Sunday that it's like every day, every single walk, Baudelaire comes up because he lived all over the city for very short periods of time.
That's like the best way to do it.
Exactly. He got a taste of all the neighborhoods.
Exactly. He knew the whole city.
He knew the whole place. But Jeanne DuVal, unfortunately, some of the specifics of her life are a little unknown because at one point her paperwork was in a fire. So she was born in the 1820s.
Oh, wow.
She was born in Haiti or Santo Domingo.
We don't know.
They don't know specifically. But she was born about the mid 1820s. They think her birth certificate was destroyed in a fire. So much of her life, unfortunately, is kind of left to kind of piece together. In doing my research for this, I found quite a few different things. Some of them seem to be a little bit more pinpointed. So, mid 1820s. Her grandmother was actually a slave, and her mother, Jeanne Lemaire, her last name was really Lemaire, Jeanne Lemaire. Her mother's was the same exact name, Jeanne Lemaire. She traveled with her to Paris to work in a brothel. So here's our spicy part.
Wait, they traveled together. It was a family occasion.
They came to travel. Her mother actually came to work in the brothel. She brought her Jeanne and her brother with her to Paris. And so depending on the date, she was actually a teenager. They think she was a teenager. She could have been as young as 13 or 14 that she began, Jeanne DuVal, began to act on the stage. And so she was this beautiful, very tall. Even when she was a teenager, she was tall. She had a very different look to her that was very striking, and she was beautiful. So, of course, a lot of those girls always go to the stage, whether they have the talent for it or not.
Well, I mean, there was slim pickings on jobs back then.
Yeah, it was very slim pickings. So she, if they were tall and beautiful, then sometimes they still were on stage because they were striking and they would bring people to come watch just to see them. So that was kind of what she did. She performed at the Théâtre de la Porte Sainte Antoine. She was known to have changed her name quite a few times, including one of your favorite names, Berthe.
Oh, that's the best name. Mert.
Yeah, she changed her name at one point to Berthe, and she also, at the same time, was acting on stage, was dabbling in prostitution a little. A girl's got to make some money.
Seriously, it's the oldest job in the world.
It's the oldest job in the world. So at that time, when she was a teenager, she was probably about 17 years old. She, Nadar, who was one of the first portrait, definitely famous portrait photographers in Paris. And so, photography hadn't been around a whole long time. And he is the one, like if you see photographs of Manet and Sarah Bernhardt and Baudelaire, it was Nadar who took those photos.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and my other favorite little thing is that his studio was on Boulevard Capucine, and that is where later, right after it was still his studio, that is where the first Impressionist exhibition was held, was in his studio.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah, just a little side note there.
Side notes.
But he actually ended up, he came and saw her on stage, was wowed by her and how beautiful she was. And he took her as his mistress.
Well, no surprises there. She was stunning.
Yeah. And that lasted for a whole year. But it was through Nadar that Charles Baudelaire, they were friends, that he actually met her, and he was instantly in love with her. Apparently, there was no bro code there because
I think they're just throwing, sharing is caring, right?
Sharing is caring. Then, but then he met her at first, and then he later saw her at a bar in Montmartre. And she was being harassed by a bunch of drunk men. And so Baudelaire stepped in, the gallant man that he was, and saved her.
So manly.
Yeah. So the two began a 20-year relationship that, as we will find out, had quite a few ups and downs. It was filled with a lot of drama. Baudelaire, of course, if you don't know who he is, he was a poet and a writer. He was well known in Paris at the time and was kind of a bit of the bad boy of the time because he was frequently sick and he had a lot of emotional issues. He was depressed a lot. He was there at the time of he's basically part of the Romantic movement with Delacroix and Victor Hugo. And they were all, chummy and knew each other. But he would just sometimes he had drug problems. Baudelaire was just, quite the odd guy.
Quite the odd guy.
Quite the odd guy. But Jeanne served as his muse and his inspiration a lot of the time. And he reflected on this in one of his most famous pieces, probably the most famous, Fleur de Mal, Flowers of Evil. And Fleur de Mal is where he takes on the subject of everything from how Haussmann was changing over Paris and how, horrible it was, to lesbianism, eroticism, just about everything was covered in a poem in Fleur de Mal.
He was a glass box of emotion.
He definitely was that. While just as many people loved this book, and it still is, it's basically when you hear Baudelaire, you usually in the same sentence will see, Fleur de Mal. This was, as many people loved it, a lot of the critics didn't like it. He was even prosecuted for the attack on public morals.
Oh, wow. They didn't like him at all.
No, along with his printer. So the printer ended up getting pulled into court because he printed it.
So did they go to jail?
No. It all ended up getting kind of washed away. And so he didn't have to go to jail. But it's pretty funny that it was, this piece of work was a attack on the public morals.
Imagine printing things and having a fear of going to prison.
Yeah. It's just crazy. But walking the streets, like we were saying, you could find Baudelaire all over the place. It's almost like, you could play a drinking game walking Paris. Even on Ile Saint-Louis, he lived in two different places. He lived in the Marais. He lived over on the left bank. He lived just all over the place. And I think that almost every place he lived has a plaque on it.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So he lived a lot of places. Every few months, it just partially to run away from his creditors that he was coming. But sometimes he just, wore out his welcome. He did live in one of the most amazing places on the Ile Saint-Louis, the Hotel Lausanne. That's kind of just at the at the western end of Ile Saint Louis. It's the house that has those amazing gutters that come down with the dolphins on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It was built in 1657 for the banker Charles Grand. And in 1685, the Marquise de Richelieu, who was the niece of Cardinal Mazarin. So it's two different. We have both of the famous cardinals in Paris history. Hortense Mazarin and the nephew of Richelieu, Charles de la Porte, lived there. And when she was 14 years younger than he was, and he was very jealous of her, the home at that point was filled with all of these statues that had belonged to Richelieu. And one night, Laporte was in a rage, and he attacked the statues and knocking off their, we'll say, naughty bits. And breaking many of them. And you can see these now in the Louvre. They're all pretty much together. And you could see where all of the cracks are where they had to fix it.
That is hilarious. Yeah. Knocking off their naughty bits.
Naughty bits, yeah. Baudelaire, of course, lived there. He lived there for 2 whole years. I mean, he's practically forever, from 1843. And it was kind of a bit of like a drug den at the time. And this building is like absolutely stunning. Our friend Landon actually happened to one day look online and was able to get in there to go see it and post. She took a bunch of beautiful pictures that I'll post on my website. But when you think of the things that have happened in there, it's a little crazy. Baudelaire had this also where he was kind of paranoid, and he would cover the windows overlooking the Seine all the way up until like 2 inches from the top. So he couldn't see anything outside.
What? But he had a great view.
Yeah, that's like one of the most amazing views. I mean, he's looking over there at like Hotel de Ville.
And then he's covering his windows.
He's covering his windows and only getting a little bit of light. And eventually they kicked him out of there.
No surprises.
Yeah, because he was a little bit crazy. But at that time when he lived there, he set up Jeanne just down the street. She, what is now Rue de Regate, which at that time it was Rue de la Femme sans tête, the woman without a head.
Well, that's a weird name.
Yeah, and so she just lived right down. It just actually was around the corner from where Camille Claudel lived. And at one point, they actually lived together for a short period of time on Rue Beautreuil, which is just across, just a little bit across from where Jim Morrison had lived.
Ah, cool. I never knew where he lived.
Yeah, different times, of course, but you know, they were practically neighbors. In 1845, Baudelaire wrote a letter to his notary that he was going to kill himself and his belongings should all be left to Jeanne. He never intended, he even intended for her to deliver the actual letter, not knowing what was in it.
Drama.
Yeah, but he didn't go through with it. He didn't kill himself. But even when they were separated, he would still come to visit her multiple times a week and bring her money.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, very nice. His mother wasn't very happy about that. He had a really odd relationship with her. They were very close, and his father died when he was young, and then she remarried. And once she remarried, she basically turned all of her attention to the new husband and away from her son. And Charles didn't like that very much. He was very upset with that. And then his mother had definite opinions about Jeanne. She would get mad because he'd give her all this money and that, you know, she thought her perfect baby boy was just getting, you know, taken by this beautiful lady.
I mean, she's protecting, right?
Being protective. But they kept in contact still throughout that, even when he and his mother would basically let him know of her disdain that she had for him. In 1853, a letter that Charles had written his mother, where he was complaining about having to pay for the burial of Jeanne DuVal's mother. She died on November 15th, 1853 in Belleville, and basically paying for the funeral and the burial just about broke him.
Oh, wow. It was expensive.
Yeah, it was expensive. He didn't have a lot of, he definitely didn't have a lot of, he wasn't rolling in the riches back then. But his mother, then would have to later give him money just to live because he kept giving all of the money to Jeanne.
Whoops.
Yeah, the two of them, of course, would move in together yet again, over this time in the Marais. And he said, my 14-year relationship with Jeanne has ended. And 2 weeks later, they were back together.
They were just so magnetic with each other.
They were so, yeah, I think there's always that craving of like, I think that, they have to have that certain level of drama, some people.
Yeah, this is true. We know people like that in today's world.
We definitely do. And in 1859, they were once again together. And she got very sick, and she actually became paralyzed on her right side.
Why? That's terrible.
Yeah. So I do not really any information on why that happened. But she was paralyzed. Baudelaire paid to take care of her. She had gone to the Maison de Santé in Dubois, and later he set her up an apartment in Neuilly, which is quite expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah, where he would move her and act as her guardian, is what he called himself at that point. So it was past being a relationship, and it was more for him just to take care of her.
That's sweet.
Yeah, there is actually also a thought that Baudelaire was actually impotent, and he actually didn't sleep with any of these women that he supposedly had affairs with.
I mean, it's quite possible. Maybe he just had one of those fetishes where he just likes to throw money at people.
I know. Let's find one of those.
Yeah, where's that job? Give me that one.
But her brother came and visited her, and during that time, Baudelaire stayed away. But it was the longest break they basically ever had, for about a month and a half that he didn't see her. But he still kept paying to take care of her, and he still kept sending her money.
Well, that's really sweet. And he doesn't even sleeping with her.
I know. He's very sweet. She then she lost her sight. She was becoming blind. But he was always there, and he was always there to help take care of her, even though, of course, we know how his mother felt. In 1861, he basically, he ended all support. It ended for good. So the two of them stopped having anything to do with each other. It was around this time that she also died. It's unclear where she is buried. She could have died from syphilis that she would have got from him. So he probably did sleep with her.
The sickness that made her go blind and half.
Yeah, it definitely could have. I just know from what it did to Manet and some other artists, but it definitely could have done that. Gustave Courbet was a friend of Baudelaire, and he painted this huge painting that's in the Orsay, which is a really fantastic painting. It's called The Atelier of the Painter. And on the right-hand side, there's all of these. In the middle of it, it has Courbet sitting there in front of an easel with a model standing behind him painting. And then around the room are a bunch of people. Well, he painted Baudelaire into it, and he painted Jeanne standing next to him. But when Baudelaire got mad at her one time, he told Courbet to erase her. So he took her out of the painting. But when you look at it, you almost could kind of still faintly see the outline of where she was.
That was like Instagram shaming back in the day, just paint the woman out of the paint.
Exactly. But it's like, that seems just so silly and petty. Like,
just so petty. Like, come on. That's like when you see those weird pictures and someone's head's missing, they just cut off the head.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny. But Courbet removed it. And, being the nice friend that he was. And one of the only images that they actually have of her, like, even if you look online, it's like, this might be a picture of her, like a photograph. This might be, there's Baudelaire actually sketched her. So there's actually sketches of her that were done by Baudelaire. And then Manet, of course, he actually painted her, and the title of the painting is The Mistress of Baudelaire. It was painted in 1862. Manet had never had her sit for him in the painting. He only met her once.
Oh, wow. That's weird.
Yeah. So she had, she definitely had a lot of people, some people would call her mulatto. But some of the stuff I've read actually call her like Creole. But she definitely had these beautiful dark features, which Monet loved. He went through that period of time where he loved that dark, the dark black hair, the dark looks, and that's where he, was so attracted to Berthe Morisot when he first met her and painted her, because she had those dark looks. And so did Jeanne DuVal.
I love it.
Yeah, I know. I love that. Jeanne was, very tall and beautiful. And Manet depicts her sitting on a couch. I'll post a picture on my website. The painting, 2 years ago, was actually at the Orsay when they did this amazing exhibition about the Black models over time, and how for so long they'd never been given, they were just, it would sometimes just say, the slave or the, Black model. They never had names. And over time, all of these researchers have actually looked up the paintings and done research, like in Manet's Olympia, the African girl in the background. Now we know her name was Laurie. So it's actually really fantastic and really interesting. But this painting was at the Orsay, so I was able to see it. It shows Jeanne sitting back laying kind of on a couch. She has her right arm up on the back of the couch, and she's wearing this huge, she has this white dress on with this huge white skirt that takes up like 2/3 of the painting. She was, you could tell kind of by looking at her legs. Once she was paralyzed, the way her foot is, you only really see her feet. But it's kind of just in a weird position. So this was definitely after she was paralyzed. And I think that's also why he covered her in this huge white voluminous skirt.
Oh, interesting.
It's a really interesting painting. He apparently, it had stayed with Baudelaire until he died. And they think that because Manet was called actually to his apartment to see the painting, and basically, say I painted this and this was the name of the painting.
That's so interesting. I want to look at that paint. Are you going to put it on your website?
Yeah, I'll put it on. It's the painting today lives in a museum in Budapest. But I'll put a picture of it for sure on my website.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah. So it was, it's a really, but there's just so much, there's, other than that, and then the drawings that Baudelaire did, there's really, not much evidence. And, basically, they don't know when she was born. They don't know exactly when she died, but we know when her mother died, which is kind of strange.
That is really
there's so much of her life that is lost.
Yeah, I mean, it was so long ago, and people of lower class or whatever weren't really documented very well. I mean, I'm sure we lost so many people to that.
Yeah, and she was such a huge influence. I mean, she was the muse of him. She definitely inspired, him in all of his madness. He would call her his Black Venus and the mistress of mistresses.
I like that.
I mean, that's a pretty high regard. The mistress of mistresses.
Yeah, you are the creme de la creme of mistresses.
Yeah, but they definitely, couldn't stay away from each other. He died in 1867 after years of suffering from syphilis.
He lived a long time with syphilis.
He did live a long time. He had always been fascinated with death, by saying, he was going to kill himself and writing about it. And he always thought he was just about ready to die.
That makes me not believe in manifesting your goals.
Yeah, definitely don't manifest that one.
Well, he was thinking about it a lot and it didn't work for him.
Yeah. But Baudelaire is an interesting character because he's buried at Montparnasse, and there's 2 graves to him. One was done, by the family that had created this one, and his loyal followers thought that it wasn't befitting enough for him, so they had another one created, and it's a little kind of creepy. It actually has him at the very top of it, kind of looking down, and below it, I think it has a skeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, and they're totally different places of the cemetery. And there's, statues of him. There's one in Jardin de Luxembourg. There's statues of him. Like I said earlier, he's on the walls of, every other building in Paris.
That's so funny.
That he had lived there. So, but, Jeanne DuVal should get more, she should get more claim to the fact that she inspired that. And there's people today that still, they're still reading Baudelaire. He just, I think it was just recently, it was his 200th birthday.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he, it was quite a while ago, and his work is still read by, thousands of people all the time.
Who like lots of death and lesbian chat.
And eroticism and everything else.
Old-timey porn.
Yeah. And he gave kind of like his, I've read the one about Paris, and he's definitely, he was kind of the angry guy all the time. Like, everything ticked him off.
Sounds Parisian.
I know. So, that's basically like, that could just be social media now.
Well, thank you for sharing all that valuable information about another woman in French history. And don't forget, everyone, to join Claudine for her live virtual tours around Paris every Sunday. You can sign up. Just go to her website, claudinehemingway.com, and you can learn all about her next visit as she chats live with you around Paris.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.